Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Have you ever felt absolutely hopeless when it comes to your health, body pain, chronic disease, mental and emotional distress, and your stress management? Yeah, I've been there too. And after years of my own health and healing journey, learning all of these different holistic healing modalities and tools, I've finally come to a point in life where I have absolutely never felt better. And I want to teach you those tools. And that's why I've created the Magnetic Mobility Meditation Program, designed specifically to tap into your body, listen to the inner wisdom it's trying to share with you, and really connect your mind, body, and soul so that you can be the healthiest, happiest version of yourself and be able to thrive in your life and truly learn about your own energy, what you need, what your non-negotiables are, as I combine this body-based practice to help you reclaim your health and thrive in your life. And did I mention that you get a 5-day free trial to the Holistic Human Performance Wellness Center, where you can access all these different programs, on-demand videos, meditations, breath work, movement, exercise, nutrition coaching, all to help you biohack your life, enhance your health and well-being, and to help you have these tools that you can put in your toolbox and you can utilize them whenever, wherever you need. Go get your 5-day free trial at www.holistichumanperformance.co/academy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw, and today we have a special guest with us. We have Michaela McGivern. She is a psychic, medium, shaman, and energy medicine practitioner. I am so excited to dive into this topic because for the listeners out there and those who know me, you know I am all about the spiritual woo-woo and how we can incorporate, these tools and modalities into our lives so that we can ultimately thrive in all aspects of our lives. And so I'm really excited to get into this topic. So welcome to the podcast, Michaela.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Good to meet you.
Yes, you as well. So I'm going to dive right in. So tell us about, what you do as a spiritual and, energy healer practitioner. Kind of how did you even get into doing what you do today?
It's been a very circuitous, non-linear path.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I had some psychic abilities, and then I shut them down because it wasn't happening. And in college, I had some strange experiences about consciousness and hearing voices, and I shut those down. And then I lived in Europe for 10 years, and during that period between 80 and 90, I had a lot of exposure to different kinds of modalities, a lot of them in the energy world. And so that really opened up my eyes. And then I think it was 1989, I started working with a physician who said, go to this energy medicine class. And I'm like, what? I said, but I don't even speak fluent French. He said, just go anyway. And so that was sort of like an introduction. And then when I came back in 2000 to the US, I'd been gone 10 years, and I immediately connected up with somebody who did quantum energetics healing. It was a hands-on healing method. And it was really brilliant. Very detailed, really good for working with emotional and physical stuff. And then from there, I just kept going, and I'm still taking classes, and it's 24 years later. And so I've done a lot of shamanic training and intuitive work. Um, I've always been, well, since my early 20s, actually, even before that, I've always been interested in spiritual and religious matters, so to
Yeah.
speak. Like, how does the world work? Because I had a real direct connection with spirit as a child.
Mm.
Um, so they've all been kind of interwoven through the work I do. And then um, I also worked for 33 years in traditional medicine as an occupational therapist. So
Oh, amazing.
it was a very different world.
Very
Uh,
different worlds.
yeah, it was interesting. I did that part-time from 2000 until 2020, and I also did my energy medicine practice then. So I came about it because mostly I was aware that most of our physical challenges and psychological issues are from unresolved trauma,
Yeah.
and also they're deep spiritual issues. What are we really waking up to? And so every time I was in the hospital, I was like, well, what is this person going through on another level? Was my inquiry, starting from my early 20s when I started working with head trauma and neurologically injured patients.
Wow.
So there was always a curiosity. And so ultimately, that is where I work now. When I'm doing healing work, well, it's all healing work if you ask me. Whether
Right.
I'm doing a psychic reading, whether it's a mediumship reading, land clearing, or I'm doing an individual healing session, it's all about clearing what's no longer serving the person so they can really show up more fully in their life, feel more embodied, more connected with themselves, and more
Mm.
present. So, whether I'm
Yeah.
clearing someone's house so that things are more harmonious, or I'm doing a mediumship reading, which allows people to resolve difficulties or questions or just things that are confusing with people on the other side, that's a kind of healing. And
Mm.
often in my readings, I will move from the physical question to, like, somebody says, I'm in a shift in my life. Well, okay, let's address the physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, but I'll also talk about what are you doing physically to
Yeah.
help. So I'll address things on all those levels when I'm working with people, um, pretty much no matter what I'm doing. So
Yeah. I have found myself doing that as well with like the work that I'm doing. I find that it's like kind of the only way when we address all of these different aspects of it, and you just gain so much clarity. And I mean, I don't know about you, but when I started to incorporate this way of living into my life, like all things, I just my health, everything, my relationships, just so much better. I'm feeling so much lighter. And I always try to implore people to, when they're like creating their like healthcare team, having someone who is in that spiritual healing realm on your team as well. I find it's a game changer. It's a game changer if you ask me. So let's define some terms, right? So I think the biggest thing that people get tripped up on is like, what's the difference between being psychic and mediumship?
um, well, you need psychic skills to be a medium,
Hmm.
okay? But all psychics are not mediums.
Right.
So being a medium is the ability to cross the veil, to communicate across the dimensions, and to find out what somebody on the other side has to say to somebody on this side, or vice versa. So essentially, we are the transmitter, the pizza delivery person.
Mm,
So when I'm a medium, I really can feel, hear, sense, and smell the person on the other side. And sometimes it's like my voice will change, or I'll physically know what state they're in. So that's what mediumship is about. I work with it a little bit differently.
mm,
And sometimes I actually will work with people on the other side who maybe aren't clear about where they want to go, or
mm,
feeling stuck or trapped. And so that's where my shamanic training really helps. So I can really transition them into the light if they're ready,
mm.
or move them out of spaces which are rather dark and difficult.
Right.
Not all mediums do that. It's a very it's a different set of skills. So most mediums just are the facilitators of communication. So like this morning, I did a reading for somebody and she asked about this transition in her life. So we looked at sort of, okay, the concrete transitions, career wise. And then I asked her about physical transition. What was she doing at this period in her life? Because she's in a big physical transition. And then we talked a little about diet and supplements. And then we talked about spiritual practice and how is she self-care. So when I'm doing a reading, I ask somebody else's guides to partner with mine
Yeah.
to bring the highest information. And they will, so somebody, maybe they give me a list of questions they have or concerns. And then I just basically download what I'm given to share with them. So I trust that whatever information comes through for them is for their highest good. And that's
Mm.
my intention when I open up the session. And invariably, so for example, this person has a hairdressing background, but she wanted to transition. So we talked about that and some other places she could go. And then a comb shows up, and I'm like, what? Sometimes it's I hear something, sometimes I'll sense something, but this comb shows up. And then we were talking about how she could use her skills in a volunteer setting.
Mm.
So it's really fascinating. So spirit will show up and give information to the person that might be about a family member who's distressed and how they can heal that relationship, or how they can transition, or what do they need health-wise, or what's the spiritual lesson involved here, or why can't they pull in a new partner. And so sometimes if I'm doing a psychic reading, I may look at what are the obstacles to, let's say, pulling in a new partner. And invariably has to do with some incomplete business with the previous partner or family member or somebody
Mm.
they're connected to. So I just ask permission, would you like to do a little healing work while we're there? Yes, let's
Of
open up the
course.
doorway. Most people say yes.
Let's open up the can of worms.
It's okay,
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with
Yeah.
difficult cans of worms. And we just do the work there. And, it's not like a big piece. It's usually
Yeah.
something manageable within the period of time. So there is some bleed over between healing work and readings. I see them all as healing processes.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, it's just a question of how do you, some people only want to like know, other people they want to get in and do a deep healing around an illness or something they're going through.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the healing work I do, I'm working with somebody who's got cancer,
Mm.
and she is doing so much clearing of what she's carrying from her lineage. So
Mm.
that requires psychic skills. It requires being able to read past lives. It requires knowing what to do with those things. And she just keeps getting clearer and clearer. She's an amazing woman. So
I love that. Mm.
it's all interwoven as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Because I have those abilities as well. Although, like, I consider it like medical mediumship, but there's so many different names out there that you could say. But I guess I never considered it psychic mediumship the way that you just explained it. But I guess that's kind of what I do. And it's just these gifts that all kind of come together to bring the best experience and healing for that person, just really holding space for them and whatever they need in that moment, in that time. So that's, I like the way that you broke that down. I think that's very helpful. And in terms of shamanism, I'm so curious about shamanism. It is something that I've been more drawn to lately. Can you talk about your work when it comes to shamanism and kind of how that what's entailed in that?
It's a very large question.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure. I'll
I
do
know
my
it's situational based, but kind of how how does shamanism play a role in the healing world?
well. The shamans were actually and still are healers who can traverse the different dimensions.
Mm.
Okay, so it depends on what tradition you're working with, but it's all. I mean, the essence of healing work is let's figure out what the obstacle is, let's clear it, and let's bring in supportive energies to restore you to a higher vibrational frequency. That's
Mm.
the simplest explanation. But that might involve, um, so like in the Peruvian shaman tradition that I trained in many, many years ago, and I don't use very much, there was a lot of soul retrieval work.
Mm.
Sandra Ingerman does it a different way, where you've had trauma and you essentially your soul aspect sort of dissociates from you. So there might be a sense of longing or incompletion or this repetition of an empty pattern or a non-productive pattern. So a shaman in that tradition would go and actually do some journeying with and for you to figure out, where did you leave your soul piece? So what was the trauma? What
Mm.
was the lesson? What was the contract there? What was the agreement? Okay. Why did you, how did that get set up initially? So this is one tiny aspect of it. In Peruvian shamanism, they do a lot of fire rituals that are using prayers and fire to cleanse and to manifest. They work with a lot of the power animals to assist in journeying work, or in claiming your own power, or bringing back pieces of you. Or they work with doing things like manifesting, but working on the earth as you look at how the earth interacts with your intention that you put in. I
Mm.
don't use so much of that anymore, but that's one aspect of it.
Mm.
I studied with another woman named Bonnie Sartori, who then called her work contemporary shamanism. And she did amazing work where you would actually journey to different dimensions.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's the underworld, which is pretty dark. We're here
Right.
in the middle world, and then there's the upper realm. But then
Right.
beyond that, there are other dimensions and spaces. So, and the further you go out in the dimensions, the less vibrational density there is. So
Mm.
we're pretty dense here. The underworld's really dense.
Yeah.
You get to the angelic realm, you can still have a sense of the light beings. But you move out to the fifth, sixth, eighth, 10th dimension, and it's just fleeting in a
Yeah.
sense. But the whole purpose for that was to realize that we are actually multidimensional beings.
Mm.
We live in more than one dimension at the same time. We bring in information from different dimensions, maybe a part of the star systems, part of the galaxies, because we're made up of all of it. Okay, we don't all know that.
Mm.
And we don't have to understand it all either. It's not necessary. Um, that can also be, sometimes we bring in information from different dimensions, which I used to do a lot more of than I do now. Um, so that will come in. The work I do now as a shaman is I do a lot of tracking along the lines of, what's the karmic relationship somebody has going
Mm.
on that's created a wound. Okay. So I might go back and say, okay, how many hundreds of thousands of years back was this initially set up? And oftentimes that initial wound is kind of just like, nobody's trying to hurt anybody. It just happens.
Right.
But then the wounding lasts and you carry it forward lifetime to lifetime. And it gets a little bigger and more intense. And by the time you come to this lifetime, like, why is this so freaking triggering? This is so out of proportion. What's wrong with me? Like, why does this person completely send me around the bend? Like, they didn't
Yeah.
do that much, but
Yeah.
it's so, you're so reaction. Well, by
Yeah.
that point, you've had this going on for multiple lifetimes. So that's one place I work. The other thing is, because we are all connected in our DNA, we carry the trauma from different people in our lineage.
Mm.
But it goes beyond that. We also carry cultural trauma. So, for example, I had a colleague who was German. She did not participate in the Holocaust, but she still has in this lifetime all the guilt.
Wow.
Yeah. So you carry cultural things too. So imagine if you were an indigenous person whose tribe 100, 200 years ago was, you know, wiped out,
Hmm.
moved, massacred. You're still carrying some of that cultural trauma as well. It's
Right.
just what's in your family. So I work a lot on those levels at this moment. I mean, I work on many levels
Of course.
and then the last thing not the last thing, but just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, is I will often, when I'm doing space clearing, I will clear the trauma out of land, which can also open up vortexes and portals to underground energies and dark energies.
I was
So
going to ask you this question, like, why environment is everything? Why is it so important to clear your land, clear your home, clear your own energy?
well, let's just start with the land.
Let's start with the land.
But they're kind of similar because
Yes, yes, yes.
so the land, just like us, has been around. Well, we haven't had been in these bodies as long as the land has existed. For example, I live in North Carolina right now. The Native Americans have been here for 14,000 years,
Yep.
a long time. And all kinds of things happen in the land, tragedies, massacres, famine. storms, who knows?
Right.
Uh, Viruses that the Spanish carried into California, all these kinds of things. And then you've got natural events like earthquakes, fires, tsunamis, you pick it. Yeah.
You name
So
it.
yeah, there's a variety to choose from. So the land will hold that vibration of that trauma unless it gets cleared. Okay.
Oh, okay. Makes so much
So
sense though.
yeah, I mean, everybody's walked into a house or to a hotel or to an old building that's haunted, and you go, whoa, this feels so yucky. I can't wait to get
Yeah.
out of here. Like, I'm going the other way. Like, whoa, what happened here? Well, so the house and the land will hold the trauma of the people who either participated or on one way or level,
Mm.
or the trauma that happened environmentally. Um, so then that sets up a vibrational frequency that you live in or is underneath your house. So I cleared a piece of property about a half an hour from here. And it was just really sad because these people were having a lot of really strange things happen in their house.
Oh
And the
no.
first thing first thing I did was clear the ghosts of all those people who'd been massacred, the
Oh,
indigenous. So you've got that. And then you've got things like if there's been drug energy or if there's been a murder in the house or domestic violence, you got to clean up that energy. Um, Suicide, another one. A prolonged illness. Sometimes I lived in a house in Belgium, and the woman who had lived there previously had died of cancer in her home, and she was still wandering around. It was like, hello, Madame Berthaud. Like, no, we live here now. Let's escort you to the light. And she's pretty
let's
benign.
escort you to the light. I love that.
Yeah, like she was really benign, but every
Yeah.
time I'd walk through the garage, the laundry room, she'd fly
Do
past me
you
like,
so with your gifts and abilities, do you see them in the 3D world in front of you, or are you seeing it more in like your mind's eye? Because I know for myself, I was like, you know, I said, I don't want this gift of seeing externally. Like in my mind's eye, fine, but I do not want to see it externally. I like shut that gift down.
yeah.
So I'm curious, is that like one of your gifts as well?
Um, yes, I can, and I don't always see them. Sometimes I
Mm,
know, and
mm,
then they'll show up.
mm.
I also use a dowsing rod if I'm clearing land.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It makes it, like, because I'm really fast with it, and I've been trained to use it for really deep questioning.
Yeah.
Um, and then by the time I've identified it, sometimes it's a knowing, sometimes it's a feeling, sometimes it's a seeing. It just depends on how it's going to show up.
Ah, okay.
She showed up in the physical,
Okay.
but in mediumship sessions, I can often feel the person, but sometimes I can see them. Oh, they're about this size and it's kind of large and they have dark hair.
Yeah.
Sometimes they really show up, and other
Yeah.
times I just hear them or know them or feel them.
Got it.
So
Got
it
it.
depends on how the universe is presenting information.
Got it.
So when I space clear and when I work on people's energy structures, we're essentially clearing out trauma. We're clearing out energies that don't belong there. We're clearing systems in the, if I work on the sacred anatomy, which we all have, we're clearing systems that have built up debris
Mm-hmm.
from this unprocessed stuff. So you clear it so that you're brighter, more energized. You're not stuck in a dark hole or
Yes.
feeling
We
like a
don't
victim, you know.
we don't
Or
need any of that.
no, and then in land, it's like the animals thrive, the insects do, the people thrive. There's peace, there's harmony. You can feel a house that's clear versus one that's like weird. That house I described to you that had the indigenous people had been massacred there. They'd also brought some objects from other cultures, and a couple of them were pretty weird. They
Oh.
definitely had some voodoo energy in them. I suggested maybe they just moved them out of the house because they had this intention, not a positive intention attached to them.
Mm.
So objects can also hold that energetic, which is why it's space clear.
That is so key for people to know because I do hear this a lot, and I'm obviously this is the work you do, oh, my house is haunted or this and that. And I'm like, I mean, you got to clear your home and even further clearing the land. Like, honestly, I've thought about it, but not as in depth as you just described. And I'm just like, whoa, that, I mean, number one, makes so much sense. And number two, just like, we do not think of these things.
Yes, and one of the things that I forgot to mention is in Western culture, we don't have a relationship with the land.
Yeah,
So
that's so true.
I'm watching these bulldozers absolutely decimate acres and acres of land to put up a car lot.
Yeah.
If I had known that's what they were going to do, I would have protested. I didn't know. And so when we cut down trees, we don't honor the tree spirits. When we disrupt the creeks and build dams, we've disrupted an entire ecosystem that feels it and
Yeah.
reverberates to us, back to us. The waters carry it, the insects do, the birds, the amphibians, all of the animals that drink from there. Putting up walls at the border. I mean, that means that animals can't migrate normally from one area in Mexico to southern US where they've migrated for thousands of years.
Mm,
So we're interrupting there. So we really don't get how our need to expand and build and construct and destruct on the land, or how many chemicals we put into our land.
yeah.
I mean,
It's overwhelming, honestly.
it's a lot to think of. So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
way that you can purify the land from a lot of it. I haven't really worked on the purifying the Roundup and stuff because
That's a
it's
whole nother topic.
exactly not this week.
Don't get me started.
Okay, you got
No,
it.
no, no. That's so funny. No, it's true though. It's and just think about it, like we're absorbing that, even like the water you're drinking, all these things, it's a vibration, it's a frequency, and our actions reverberate out, vice versa. And I work with a lot of people who go through like disease, have health anxieties, adversities, and these questions that I ask them, they're like, I didn't think about that. Oh, or I didn't know about that. And these things that we're just like, I guess, sheltered from, even though it's very much like out there now. But, also people don't want to, they kind of want to bury their head in the sand and not really open this can of worms sometimes. But I'm finding a lot more people are way more open now, and you've been around. So I'm sure you're seeing the same as well, right?
I see some people are really open and some people really, it's not in their consciousness to ask certain questions, so they're not
Mm,
really receptive. Um, I think there's people on all parts of the spectrum. People are really open and people are really closed and everybody in between who are
mm,
just journeying with the questions that
yeah.
you maybe you're posing to them. And it's also interesting to see what is in mainstream media that
Right. Mm,
that I really maybe have a different viewpoint of. So, if you don't know where to find the alternative stuff, you're not going to see it.
yeah.
I'm still learning plenty of
Yeah.
places. So,
Yeah.
um, we're just journeying. We're just learning it as best we can, how we need to learn it.
I love that. Thank you. So, as we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to leave the listeners?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I can pass them on from my own spiritual teacher, Miranda McPherson, and Tom Kenyon and Grace Galgazorial, whom I worked with for a long time. That as we go into these really, really chaotic times, um, it looks like things are falling apart. Know that it's held in love. And the best way that I know to navigate it is to do your spiritual practice, whether you meditate, whether you pray, whether you do a gratitude practice, but stay centered and grounded in what you can do to stay positive, to generate kindness, and to generate compassion in life. And to look at how you do or don't eat from the social media, which is essentially, is it nutritious for your soul?
Mm,
and your heart. So I would just really encourage people to go back to their hearts and do what their hearts are guiding them, not the external forces around them.
mm. So good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm. So
Thank you.
where can people find you?
I have a website, MichaelaMcGivern.com. I offer a 30-minute free discovery call, just to call and say, find out if we're a good match.
Mm,
And on my website, you will see all the different services I offer. I am becoming less and less involved with social media just because of the vibrational frequency of it.
yeah.
And I, so you send me an email and said, like to talk to you, or you schedule an appointment, I'm there. And I'm very happy to connect with people that way. I do have a little social media presence on Facebook and LinkedIn, but I have been taking a sabbatical for about 6 months from it.
I don't blame you. I do
like,
not blame you at all.
like it's okay.
Yeah, it is
So
okay. Because you're
yeah,
still attracting soulmate clients no matter what, because you're just being you.
exactly. It's so I'm just staying in the flow of it. So
Yeah,
thank, thank you so much, Gina. It's a
you're so
pleasure.
welcome.
Thank you for
Okay,
the work you're doing.
thank you. I appreciate that. So, guys, if you want to find Michaela, I will link her website in the show notes. And if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, share it with a friend, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.